My name is Elaine Watson, and at 68 years old, I never imagined I'd be homeless because of my own son. After my husband died, Gregory offered his home as my safety net. I thought it was love. I was wrong. That morning changed everything when he stormed into the kitchen, waving a piece of paper in my face. A bill for $437. You cost too much to keep. He spat like I was a car with expensive repairs. Broken and betrayed, I made the one call I never expected would save me. To Shannon, his ex-wife. If you're watching this from somewhere where family betrayal hits close to home, hit like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a family member put a price tag on your worth. Before everything fell apart, I had what most would consider a normal life. Frank and I had been married for 33 years when cancer took him from me. We weren't wealthy, but we had our modest ranch-style home in Colorado Springs, filled with memories and the comfortable life we'd built together. Frank worked as an electrical engineer while I managed a small bookstore downtown. We had saved for retirement, but not enough for the avalanche of medical bills that came with Frank's 18-month battle with pancreatic cancer. When Frank passed, I found myself drowning. The mortgage, the medical bills, the funeral costs, it was all too much on my small pension from the bookstore. Our savings were depleted from Frank's treatments. After months of struggling to keep my head above water, I made the heartbreaking decision to sell our home and most of our possessions. The house that had heard our laughter, arguments, and whispered dreams for over 2 decades was no longer mine. That's when Gregory, our only son, made what seemed like a generous offer. "Mom, why don't you move in with me? I have plenty of space, and you shouldn't be alone right now." At 35, Gregory had established himself as a successful IT consultant in Denver. His house in the suburbs was spacious. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a finished basement, and a landscaped yard that Frank would have envied. I was grateful and relieved. Perhaps this tragedy would bring us closer, I thought. The early days living with Gregory seemed promising. I tried to make myself useful, cooking his favorite meals from childhood, keeping the house spotless, and doing laundry. I wanted to contribute, to not feel like a burden. Gregory worked long hours, often not coming home until 8 or 9 at night, but when he did, we'd sometimes share dinner and he'd tell me about his projects or office politics. Gregory had divorced his wife Shannon 2 years earlier. From what I gathered, it had been an amicable split. They simply wanted different things in life. Shannon wanted children. Gregory was focused on his career. I had always liked Shannon during their 4-year marriage. She was warm and unpretentious, a kindergarten teacher with a gentle spirit. We would chat on the phone occasionally after the divorce, but those calls became less frequent as time passed. I truly believe Gregory was being kind by taking me in. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs. Gregory had always been materialistic, even as a child. He counted his birthday money, negotiated higher allowances, and opened his first investment account at 16. Frank and I had been proud of his financial acumen then. I never imagined it would one day be turned against me. I tried to minimize my presence in his home. I kept my things confined to the guest bedroom and bathroom. I was careful about my water usage and kept the thermostat at whatever temperature Gregory preferred. I bought my own groceries whenever possible with my small pension, which barely covered my medications, cell phone bill, and personal items. For the first few weeks, I felt hope blooming. I had lost my husband, my home, and my independence, but I still had my son. I thought we would heal together. That maybe Frank's death had made Gregory realize the importance of family. I would help him with his home, and he would help me rebuild my life. We would be there for each other. At night, I would look at the photos of Gregory growing up that I had managed to keep when I sold the house. His gap-toothed smile in first grade, his proud stance beside his science fair project in middle school, his graduation from college where Frank had tears streaming down his face. These memories comforted me. My son was a good person. He was successful because Frank and I had raised him with strong values. Or so I believed. I settled into a routine. Wake up early, make coffee, prepare breakfast for Gregory before he left for work. Then clean, do laundry, plan dinner, tend to the small garden I had started in the backyard with Gregory's permission. In the afternoons, I would watch TV quietly or read books from the library. I was careful not to disrupt anything in the house or change his way of living. I wanted to be an asset, not a liability. When Gregory would come home, I'd have dinner ready. Sometimes he'd eat with me, other times he'd take his plate to his home office to continue working. I understood. He was building his career and I was proud of his work ethic. Frank had been the same way. On weekends, I would suggest activities we could do together: farmers markets, movies, or just coffee at the local cafe. Sometimes Gregory would agree, and I treasured those moments. Other times he was too busy, and I told myself not to be disappointed. He was an adult with his own life. I was grateful, truly. I had a roof over my head, a comfortable bed, and my son nearby. After the devastation of losing Frank, this felt like a lifeline. I didn't expect to be happy yet. Grief doesn't work that way, but I felt safe. Gregory was my safety net, and I thanked God every night for his generosity. How quickly that perception would change. The shift began subtly around 2 months after I moved in. I was preparing dinner one evening when Gregory came home earlier than usual. He set his briefcase down and stood watching me chop vegetables. "The grocery bill has doubled since you moved in," he said without preamble. I looked up, surprised by both his observation and tone. "I've been buying my own groceries whenever I can," I responded, feeling a sudden need to defend myself. "Not everything," he countered. "And you use more electricity and water than I did living alone." That conversation marked a turning point. Suddenly, Gregory seemed hyper-aware of every resource I consumed. He began making comments about my lengthy showers, though I had been timing them to 5 minutes. He questioned why lights were on in rooms I had just left momentarily. He noted how much laundry I did, even though I always included his clothes with mine to maximize efficiency. One morning, I found him examining the refrigerator contents, mentally inventorying what belonged to whom. "Maybe we should label our food," he suggested. "That way we can keep track of what we each consume." I felt a knot form in my stomach but nodded agreeably. "Whatever you think is best, Gregory." Within a week, colorful sticky notes appeared on food items. Blue for his, yellow for mine. The visual representation of our separate lives within the same household broke my heart a little, but I complied without complaint. I offered to increase my financial contribution, though it would mean cutting back on my medications. "I can give you $300 for rent each month," I said over breakfast. Gregory considered this, calculating something in his head. "That's below market rate for a bedroom and private bath in this neighborhood," he replied. "But we can start there." I was stunned by his businesslike approach. This wasn't a landlord-tenant relationship. This was family. At least that's what I thought. But for Gregory, the lines were blurring. Our interactions became increasingly transactional. Gone were the occasional meals together or weekend outings. Gregory worked later, sometimes not coming home until I was already in bed. When he was home, he would retreat to his office or bedroom. Our conversations became brief exchanges about household logistics. "The water bill is up 30% from last quarter," he informed me one evening, sliding the statement across the kitchen counter toward me. "I've been trying to conserve," I said quietly. "I take shorter showers now." "And yet," he replied, tapping the number on the paper with his index finger. I began to feel anxious about every drop of water, every kilowatt of electricity, every square inch of space I occupied in his home. I started washing dishes by hand instead of using the dishwasher. I wore extra layers instead of adjusting the thermostat. I ate smaller portions to make my groceries last longer. Gregory's girlfriend Vanessa began visiting more frequently. She was 15 years younger than him, a marketing executive with sharp features and sharper opinions. Her smile would fade whenever she saw me, replaced with thinly veiled annoyance. "Does your mother always hover around the kitchen like this?" I overheard her ask Gregory one night, not bothering to lower her voice. "She's cooking dinner," Gregory replied, but didn't defend me further. "Can't she do that earlier? It's awkward trying to have a glass of wine with her puttering around." The next day, Gregory suggested I adjust my cooking schedule. "Maybe you could prepare your meals before 6? Vanessa and I would appreciate some privacy in the evenings." My heart sank. I was being relegated to specific time slots in what was supposed to be my home too. "Of course," I agreed, swallowing my hurt. One afternoon while Gregory was at work, I accidentally knocked over a stack of papers on his desk while dusting. As I gathered them, I noticed a small notepad with my name at the top. Below it was a list. Shower, 12 minutes, breakfast, eggs and toast, TV 3 hours. He was tracking my consumption like I was a resource to be monitored. I carefully replaced everything and retreated to my room, fighting tears. What had happened to my son? When had he become so coldly calculating about his own mother? My anxiety grew. I began to feel like an intruder in the house, tiptoeing around and minimizing my presence. I stopped using the living room entirely. I ate quick meals standing at the kitchen counter. I even started using the bathroom at the local library during the day to reduce my water usage at home. The physical and emotional toll was evident. I lost weight. My sleep became fragmented with worry. I developed stomachaches from stress. But I had nowhere else to go. My pension barely covered my medications and personal expenses, especially now that I was giving Gregory money for rent. What hurt most was realizing that our relationship had fundamentally changed. I was no longer his mother. I was a liability on his personal balance sheet. A cost to be minimized. An expense to be tracked. I thought of all the times I had gone without so Gregory could have what he needed growing up. The second job I took to pay for his braces. The vacation funds redirected to his college application fees. The retirement contributions Frank and I had skipped to help with his tuition. None of that seemed to matter now. In Gregory's world, what mattered was the bottom line. And apparently I was costing him too much. By the 4th month of living with Gregory, his obsession with fairness in household expenses had reached new heights. No longer content with sticky notes and casual tracking, he created an Excel spreadsheet detailing what he considered my daily consumption costs. "I've calculated your utility usage," he announced one Sunday morning, opening his laptop at the kitchen table. "Based on average water consumption, electricity usage patterns, and square footage occupied, your daily cost comes to approximately $14.26. I stared at him, a spoonful of oatmeal suspended halfway to my mouth. "You've been measuring my existence?" "It's just data, Mom. It helps us both understand the real costs." He turned the screen toward me, showing a color-coded spreadsheet with categories like shower gallons, laundry loads per week, and even kitchen occupancy, minutes per day. The meticulous breakdown felt dehumanizing. My presence in my son's life had been reduced to numbers and formulas. That same week, Gregory called a household meeting. Just the two of us sitting stiffly in his living room while Vanessa lounged nearby, pretending not to listen. "I think it's time we discussed a more equitable financial arrangement," Gregory began, his tone reminiscent of his business presentations. "The $300 you've been contributing doesn't adequately cover your portion of expenses." "Gregory, that's nearly half my monthly pension," I explained, hating how defensive I sounded. "After my medications and other necessities, I don't have much left." He frowned, clearly uncomfortable with this inconvenient fact. "Have you considered finding a job? Something part-time, perhaps?" The suggestion wasn't entirely unreasonable, but the way he delivered it, as if I'd been deliberately avoiding employment, stung deeply. "I've been applying," I said quietly. "It's not easy at my age, with my limited recent work experience." "Try harder," Vanessa interjected from the couch. "My aunt is 62 and she just got hired at Walmart." Gregory didn't contradict her, and his silence felt like agreement. The following weeks became a blur of job applications and rejections. I applied to bookstores, remembering my previous experience. "We're looking for someone with knowledge of current bestsellers and social media," they told me. I tried grocery stores. "The position requires lifting up to 50 pounds regularly." Receptionist positions. "We need advanced computer skills." Each rejection chipped away at my already fragile self-confidence. I did secure an interview at a local coffee shop, but when I mentioned my arthritis might make extended standing difficult, the manager's interest visibly waned. No callback followed. Meanwhile, Gregory's hostility grew more pronounced. He began sighing loudly when entering rooms where I sat. He checked the thermostat obsessively if I'd been home alone, as if I might have cranked the heat to tropical levels in his absence. "The internet has been slow lately," he remarked one evening. "Have you been streaming movies during the day?" "Just the news in the morning," I replied. Maybe we should implement bandwidth limits, he mused, more to himself than to me. Vanessa's influence became increasingly evident. She would make suggestions to Gregory just within my earshot. You know, my cousin's mother lives in that new senior apartment complex, she mentioned over dinner one night. It's subsidized. Very affordable. Gregory nodded thoughtfully. Something to consider. They weren't even being subtle anymore. They wanted me gone. I began to hear Gregory complaining about me to friends on the phone, retreating to my room but still catching fragments. Supporting my mother now. Didn't plan for this financial burden. Cutting into our travel budget. Each overheard comment reinforced what was becoming unavoidably clear. I was unwanted baggage in my son's carefully budgeted life. My mental health deteriorated rapidly. I stopped calling the few friends I had maintained after Frank's death, too embarrassed to admit how my own son viewed me. I lost interest in the small garden I had started. Some days I wouldn't leave my room until Gregory left for work, afraid of being perceived as consuming too many resources. The final straw came at Gregory's birthday dinner. He had invited several colleagues and friends to a restaurant downtown. I spent nearly a week finding an appropriate gift on my limited budget, a leather portfolio I thought would be perfect for his client meetings. I had skipped my arthritis medication for 2 weeks to afford it. During dinner, after several drinks, Gregory began telling a story about his childhood. Mom was always the practical one, he said, gesturing toward me. She taught me the value of every dollar. His colleagues nodded appreciatively. And now I'm teaching her about modern household economics while supporting her. The table laughed, not recognizing the humiliation burning through me. I forced a smile, clutching my water glass so tightly I feared it might shatter. Later that night, I overheard Gregory and Vanessa in the kitchen. You can't keep supporting her indefinitely, Vanessa insisted. We've been talking about moving in together, and there won't be room. I know, Gregory sighed. But what am I supposed to do? She's my mother. That doesn't make her your financial responsibility forever. She needs to stand on her own 2 feet. I retreated silently to my room, the truth finally crystallizing. I was a problem to be solved, an expense to be eliminated, a line item that no longer fit in my son's budget. That night, I lay awake wondering how I had raised a son who could reduce his mother's worth to dollars and cents. Where had I gone wrong? What would Frank say if he could see what our boy had become? Most importantly, where could I possibly go with no savings, no job prospects, and a meager pension that barely covered my basic needs? I felt utterly trapped and increasingly desperate. The morning that changed everything began like any other. I woke early, made coffee, and was preparing a simple breakfast of toast when Gregory entered the kitchen dressed for work, but with an intensity in his expression that made me pause. We need to talk, he said, placing a folded paper on the counter between us. This isn't working anymore. My heart raced as I unfolded what appeared to be an itemized statement. At the top, in bold letters, monthly expenses attributable to Elaine Watson. Below was a meticulously detailed breakdown. Food consumption, $189.42. Utilities, water, electricity, gas $103.76. Internet/cable usage, $43.50. Space rental, bedroom, bathroom, common areas $100. Additional cleaning products, $22.15. Miscellaneous, $24.62. Total, $437.45. What is this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Gregory straightened his tie, avoiding eye contact. It's an accurate accounting of what you cost me each month. Cost you? The words felt foreign in my mouth. I'm your mother, not a business expense. That's exactly the problem, he replied, his voice hardening. You're treating this like a mother-son relationship when it's really a financial arrangement. You cost too much to keep. Too much to keep. Like I was a pet or an old car requiring expensive maintenance. I've been more than fair, he continued, tapping the paper. But this arrangement isn't sustainable. Either you need to start paying fair market rent, at least $700 monthly plus utilities, or we need to discuss alternative living arrangements. The room seemed to tilt. $700 was nearly my entire pension. He knew that. Gregory, I managed. You know I can't afford that. Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live, he stated flatly. I've been carrying this financial burden for months, and with Vanessa moving in next month, we need the space anyway. Vanessa moving in? This was the first I'd heard of it. How much time do I have? I asked, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. 30 days should be sufficient, he replied, checking his watch. I need to get to work. We can discuss details tonight. He grabbed his briefcase and left without another word, leaving me standing in the kitchen, clutching the paper that had reduced my existence to a series of dollar amounts. I made it back to my room before collapsing onto the bed, sobs racking my body. How had it come to this? My own son, my only child, the baby I had nursed through colic and chickenpox, the boy I had stayed up with to finish science projects, the teenager whose heart I had mended after his first breakup. That same person now saw me as nothing more than an unwelcome expense. I cried until no more tears would come, my pillow soaked and my chest aching. Then I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every sacrifice Frank and I had made for Gregory. We had worked overtime to send him to summer coding camps when his interest in computers emerged. We had taken out a second mortgage to help pay for his college tuition at an expensive private university. When he wanted to start his first tech company, we had contributed $30,000 from our retirement fund. We had always put his needs first, believing that parents should give their children every possible advantage. Now, when I needed him most, he was calculating the cost of my showers. The cruelest irony was that the spreadsheet on my nightstand contained many of the same categories as the household budget Frank and I had maintained when raising Gregory. The difference was that we had never once considered our son a financial burden. He was our child, our responsibility, our joy. The money we spent on him was an investment in his future, not an expense to be minimized. As the shock began to wear off, another emotion took its place: humiliation. I couldn't bear the thought of facing Gregory or Vanessa again. The idea of sitting across from them at dinner, knowing they were mentally calculating the cost of each bite I took, was unbearable. I pulled my suitcase from under the bed and began methodically folding clothes into it. I had nowhere to go, but staying another minute in a home where I was clearly unwanted seemed impossible. My dignity, at least what remained of it, demanded that I leave. As I packed, I came across photos I'd saved from the sale of our house. Gregory's high school graduation, with Frank beaming beside him. Gregory opening the envelope containing his college acceptance letter. Gregory at his business launch party, raising a toast to his supportive parents who made it all possible. The contrast between the grateful son in those photos and the cold-hearted man who had handed me an invoice for my existence was too painful to reconcile. I continued packing, including only what would fit in my suitcase and one small box. Everything else, the few pieces of furniture I'd kept from our family home, kitchen items I'd brought, even books, I would leave behind. I couldn't bear to ask Gregory for help moving them, and I had nowhere to take them anyway. By noon, I had packed my essential belongings and sat on the edge of the bed, facing the hardest question. Where would I go? I had maybe $2,000 in savings, which might cover a cheap motel for a few weeks, but then what? Senior housing had waiting lists of months or even years. Homeless shelters seemed my only option, a thought that sent fresh tears streaming down my face. I scrolled through my phone contacts, looking for anyone who might take me in temporarily. Most of my friends had downsized to smaller homes for retirement. Some had moved away to be near grandchildren. Others had their own financial struggles. After an hour of considering and rejecting possibilities, I sat in defeated silence. Then a name caught my eye: Shannon Baker, my former daughter-in-law. My finger hovered over Shannon's name in my contacts. Would she even want to hear from me? We had maintained a cordial relationship after her divorce from Gregory, but our communications had dwindled to occasional birthday messages and Christmas cards. Still, I had no other options. With trembling hands, I pressed the call button. Elaine. Shannon's surprised voice answered on the third ring. Is everything okay? The genuine concern in her tone broke something inside me. No, I admitted, my voice cracking. Everything is not okay. I tried to explain my situation calmly. but the words tumbled out in a confused rush of emotion. Gregory's itemized bill. His ultimatum. My nowhere-to-go panic. He gave you an actual bill? Shannon asked, disbelief evident in her voice. $437.45, I confirmed. Apparently that's what I cost him monthly. There was a long pause, and I feared I had made a terrible mistake calling her. Then Shannon spoke with unexpected firmness. Pack your things, Elaine. You're coming to stay with me. What? No, I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition, she interrupted. I have a guest room that's sitting empty, and I could use the company. Besides, she added with a hint of steel in her voice, I think Gregory and I need to have a conversation about how he treats family. Shannon's offer seemed too good to be true. Are you sure? I don't know how long it would be for, and I don't want to be a burden. Elaine, Shannon said gently, you were always kind to me, even after the divorce. You're not a burden, you're family. The real kind, not whatever version Gregory is practicing. Tears welled up again, but different ones this time. Tears of relief and gratitude. Thank you, I whispered. We made arrangements for Shannon to pick me up after she finished teaching that afternoon. As I waited, I thought about the irony of seeking refuge with my son's ex-wife. I remembered their divorce 2 years earlier, how Gregory had framed it as growing apart and wanting different things. Shannon had wanted children. Gregory claimed he wasn't ready. Now I wondered if there had been more to it. Had Shannon seen this side of Gregory? Had she recognized his coldness, his transactional approach to relationships? As I finished packing, I found a birthday card Shannon had sent me last year. Inside, she had written, Family isn't always blood, Elaine. Thank you for remaining in my life. Those words held new meaning now. I decided to leave behind everything Gregory had given me as gifts over the years. On each item, I placed a sticky note with its approximate value. A scarf, $35. A coffee mug, $12. Slippers, $28. If he was going to reduce our relationship to dollars and cents, I would leave him with a visual reminder of his generosity, or lack thereof. On the kitchen counter, I left a note. Gregory, I raised you to value people over possessions, kindness over convenience, and family over finances. Somewhere along the way, those lessons were lost. I will not stay where I am viewed as a liability rather than a loved one. I hope someday you understand that some things like dignity and compassion are priceless. Mom. I placed my house key beside the note, took one last look around the home I had thought would be my safe haven, and waited on the front porch for Shannon. When her blue sedan pulled into the driveway, I felt both tremendous relief and profound sadness. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. Shannon stepped out of the car and immediately enveloped me in a warm hug. It's going to be okay, she murmured. As we loaded my meager belongings into her car, I felt a weight lifting. The constant anxiety of monitoring my every movement, calculating my consumption, and tiptoeing around my own living space began to dissipate. The drive to Shannon's house was quiet at first. Then she broke the silence. I should have warned you about him, she said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. About how he really is with money. What do you mean? Shannon sighed. Our marriage didn't end because we wanted different things, Elaine. It ended because Gregory valued his financial spreadsheets more than our relationship. He tracked every penny I spent. He questioned every purchase. He resented my student loans even though I was paying them myself. When I talked about having children, he created a spreadsheet showing how much a child would cost over 18 years and said it wasn't a good investment. Her words hit me like physical blows. This wasn't new behavior. This was who my son had become. I'm so sorry, I said, both for what she had experienced and for what I was only now understanding about my own child. Shannon shook her head. Don't apologize. You and Frank were wonderful parents. This isn't on you. We arrived at Shannon's modest 2-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood. It was smaller than Gregory's house but infinitely more welcoming. Plants filled sunny windowsills, colorful throw pillows brightened the couch, and photographs lined the walls, many of them featuring her kindergarten students. The guest room is small, she apologized, showing me into a sunny space with a twin bed and simple furnishings. But it's yours for as long as you need it. It's perfect, I said truthfully. The room felt safe in a way Gregory's guest suite never had. Shannon helped me unpack, then insisted on ordering pizza for dinner. My treat, she said firmly when I reached for my wallet. We can figure out household arrangements later. Tonight you rest. As we ate, Shannon told me about her teaching job, her friends, her volunteer work at an animal shelter. Not once did she mention costs or expectations. It was just conversation, human connection without calculations. After dinner, my phone rang. Gregory's name flashed on the screen. He found the note, I said nervously. Shannon squeezed my hand. You don't have to answer. But I did. Hello, Gregory. Where the hell are you? He demanded without preamble. I come home and find some dramatic note and all your things gone? I've found another place to stay, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. Where? A shelter? A park bench? His tone was mocking. This is ridiculous, Mom. We could have worked something out. You made it very clear that I was a financial burden, I said. I removed the burden. And where exactly did you go that was so much better than the home I provided? I hesitated, then decided honesty was best. I'm staying with Shannon. The silence that followed was deafening. Shannon, he finally sputtered. My ex-wife Shannon? Yes. You've got to be kidding me, he said, his voice rising. You're siding with her? After everything I've done for you? This isn't about sides, Gregory. It's about being treated with basic dignity. This is a betrayal, he hissed. You know how I feel about her. And you made it very clear how you feel about me, I countered. $437.45, remember? He hung up without another word. Shannon, who had heard my side of the conversation, moved to sit beside me on the couch. You did great, she assured me. He thinks I betrayed him, I said, the irony of his accusation not lost on me. You protected yourself, Shannon corrected. There's a difference. That night, in the small but comfortable guest room, I slept better than I had in months. No anxiety about running the shower too long. No fear of using too much electricity by reading past 9 o'clock. No dread about facing judgment over breakfast. For the first time since Frank died, I felt I might have found a place where I belonged. My first week at Shannon's house was an adjustment, but not in the ways I had feared. The adjustment wasn't to new restrictions or expectations, but to their absence. Shannon never commented on how long my showers took, or how many cups of coffee I drank. She didn't track my comings and goings or calculate my share of utilities. Make yourself at home, she insisted. What's mine is yours. Her modest home quickly began to feel more like home than Gregory's ever had. Shannon's dining table became a place for conversations that stretched late into the evening. Her kitchen became a space where we took turns cooking meals, not out of obligation but enjoyment. Her living room became somewhere I could actually live. Gregory called again 3 days after I left. His anger had shifted to manipulation. Mom, this is ridiculous, he began. You overreacted to a simple household discussion. You gave me an itemized bill for existing in your home, I reminded him. I was just trying to help you understand the financial realities, he countered. You've been out of the workforce for years. You don't understand how expensive everything is now. I understand perfectly what things cost, I said quietly. And I now understand what I'm worth to you. That's not fair, he protested. I took you in when you had nowhere to go. And made sure I knew what an inconvenience it was every single day. He sighed dramatically. Look, maybe I was a bit harsh with the numbers. We can renegotiate. You can stay in the guest room if you contribute what you can. No thank you, I said. I'm comfortable where I am. With my ex-wife? His voice rose again. Do you have any idea how that makes me look? And there it was, his real concern. Not my welfare, but his image. I need to go, Gregory. Shannon and I are about to have dinner. I hung up, hands shaking but heart steadier than before. Shannon and I fell into a natural rhythm. She left early for her teaching job, and I would have coffee waiting when she rushed out the door. During the day, I began helping with household tasks, not because they were expected but because I wanted to contribute. I tended her small garden, organized her chaotic bookshelves, and started preparing dinners that would be ready when she returned from work. In the evenings, we would talk about our days. Shannon would share amusing stories about her kindergartners. I would talk about my job search progress or a new recipe I tried. Sometimes we just watched television together, commenting on shows or simply enjoying the company. One evening, Shannon hesitantly brought up a revelation. "I need to tell you something about my marriage to Gregory," she began. "Something I'm not proud of." I tensed, unsure what was coming. When things got really bad between us, when his financial control became unbearable, I started hiding money. She looked down at her hands. I opened a separate bank account and put aside a little from each paycheck, money he couldn't track. I told myself it was for emergencies, but really, it was my escape fund. She met my eyes. I was planning to leave him for months before I actually did. "You don't need to feel guilty about that," I assured her. "You were protecting yourself." "The thing is," Shannon continued, "I recognized the same patterns in how he was treating you. The tracking, the monitoring, the constant reminders of your cost. It was financial abuse, Elaine. That's what he did to me, and that's what he was doing to you." Financial abuse. The term was new to me, but it perfectly described what I had experienced. Gregory controlling resources, tracking my every consumption, making me feel guilty for basic needs, isolating me by making me dependent. It had a name. Shannon helped me see that I wasn't alone in this experience. She connected me with a support group for seniors dealing with family estrangement and financial exploitation. For the first time, I heard stories similar to mine, parents whose adult children viewed them as burdens or financial liabilities, rather than people deserving of dignity and respect. With Shannon's encouragement, I also applied for senior assistance programs I hadn't known existed. A pharmaceutical program that reduced my medication costs. A community transportation service for seniors. A job placement program specifically for older adults re-entering the workforce. Through the latter, I secured a part-time position at a local library. 15 hours weekly that accommodated my arthritis and energy levels. The pay was modest, but combined with my pension, it allowed me to contribute to Shannon's household expenses. "You don't have to," she insisted when I first offered to pay toward utilities and groceries. "I want to," I replied. "Not because you've asked or expected it, but because that's what people do when they share a home. They contribute what they can, when they can, without spreadsheets or invoices." Our peaceful new routine was interrupted one Saturday morning when Gregory showed up unannounced at Shannon's door. Shannon answered, and I heard his demanding voice from the kitchen where I was preparing breakfast. "I need to speak with my mother," he stated flatly. "Is she expecting you?" Shannon asked coolly. "She's my mother. I don't need an appointment." "Actually, you do," Shannon replied. "This is my home, and no one enters without an invitation." I moved to the doorway, wiping my hands on a dishcloth. "It's okay, Shannon. I'll talk to him." Gregory stood on the porch, impeccably dressed even on a weekend, his expression a mixture of annoyance and discomfort. Shannon retreated to give us privacy, but remained within earshot in the living room. "You need to come home, Mom," Gregory said without preamble. "This situation is inappropriate and embarrassing." "Embarrassing for whom?" I asked. "For all of us," he insisted. "People are talking. My colleagues are asking questions. It looks like I kicked you out. Didn't you?" I countered. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I was trying to establish reasonable boundaries. "You overreacted." "Reasonable boundaries?" I repeated. "You gave me a bill for existing. I was trying to make you understand." "What?" "That I was worth less to you than $437 monthly." Gregory ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "You're twisting this." "I was simply being practical." "No," I said firmly. "You were being cruel. There's a difference." Shannon appeared beside me. "I think Elaine has made her position clear, Gregory." He looked between us, incredulous. "So this is how it's going to be? The two of you against me?" "This isn't about being against you," I said tiredly. "It's about me finally standing up for myself. By running to my ex-wife? By making me look like the villain?" "You managed that all on your own," Shannon interjected. Gregory's face hardened. I see how it is. Fine. Stay here. See if I care. He turned to leave, then paused. But don't come crying to me when you need something, Mom. You've made your choice. After he left, I sank onto Shannon's couch, emotionally drained. I never thought my relationship with my son would come to this. Shannon sat beside me. He might come around eventually, but even if he doesn't, you've shown incredible strength. You chose your dignity over his approval. That confrontation marked a turning point for me. I stopped hoping Gregory would suddenly transform back into the loving son I thought I had raised. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life with the support of someone who had unexpectedly become more family to me than my own blood. Over the following weeks, I immersed myself in my library job, delighting in being surrounded by books again and engaging with patrons. I joined a senior yoga class at the community center to help manage my arthritis. I made new friends through Shannon's social circle, women who accepted me without question or judgment. Gregory made a few half-hearted attempts to contact me after our confrontation. Text messages that never quite contained apologies. Hope you're doing well. Let me know if you need anything. We should talk sometime. I responded politely but briefly, maintaining the boundary I had finally established. I would not return to being the mother who was valued only when convenient or affordable. Shannon helped me understand that Gregory's behavior reflected his issues, not my worth. Some people view relationships as transactions, she explained one evening. They're always calculating what they're getting versus what they're giving. Frank didn't raise him that way, and neither did you. But somewhere along the line, that's who he became. It hurt to accept this truth about my only child, but acknowledging reality was healthier than clinging to illusions. I had spent months trying to make myself small enough, cheap enough, invisible enough to remain in Gregory's life. Now I was learning to expand into my full self again, to take up space without apology, to recognize my intrinsic value beyond dollars and cents. One evening, as Shannon and I worked together in her garden, she looked up from the tomato plant she was staking. You know, I always wanted a mother-in-law like you. Someone kind and supportive. Someone who would be a grandmother to the children I hoped to have. I would have loved that, I admitted, feeling the weight of what might have been. Well, she said with a smile, life takes strange turns. We're not mother-in-law and daughter-in-law anymore, but we're something. Family of choice maybe. Family of choice. The phrase resonated deeply. In losing what I thought was my only family, I had found a different kind of connection. One based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation or biology. 6 months after that fateful morning when Gregory handed me the bill that changed everything, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The small guest room in Shannon's house now truly felt like my space, decorated with a few cherished items from my marriage to Frank and new touches that reflected my emerging identity. Shannon and I had settled into a comfortable routine that honored both our need for independence and our enjoyment of companionship. We shared cooking duties, split household chores according to preference rather than obligation, and maintained our own social lives while also enjoying evenings together. The difference between this living arrangement and my time with Gregory was stark. Shannon and I had never once discussed fair market value for the bedroom I occupied. We never calculated the cost of my showers or tracked the electricity used by my reading lamp. Instead, we operated on a simple principle. We both contributed what we could when we could in ways that made sense. I had continued working at the library, gradually increasing my hours as my confidence grew. The modest income, combined with my pension, allowed me to contribute to our household expenses and even build a small savings account. The financial independence, limited though it was, restored a sense of dignity I had lost during my time with Gregory. Gregory himself had made sporadic attempts to reconnect, each one revealing more about his motivations than perhaps he intended. His initial calls had been angry and accusatory. These gave way to concerned messages once his colleagues and friends began asking uncomfortable questions about my absence. Most recently, his approaches had taken on a tone of injured innocence, as if he were the wronged party in our estrangement. I was only trying to help you understand financial realities, he insisted during one phone call. Everyone else can see that I was being reasonable. Perhaps, I replied calmly, But relationships aren't balance sheets, Gregory. People aren't assets or liabilities. I had established firm boundaries. I would take his calls, respond to his messages, even meet him occasionally for coffee in public places. But I would not return to a situation where my worth was measured in dollars and cents. I would not apologize for choosing dignity over dependency. And I would not pretend that what he had done was normal or acceptable. With Shannon's encouragement, I had joined a support group for seniors dealing with family estrangement. The stories I heard there helped me realize I wasn't alone. Many adult children, it seemed, viewed their aging parents through a lens of financial burden, rather than lifelong connection. Many seniors found themselves calculating their own value in terms of what they could contribute materially, forgetting that presence, wisdom, and love had worth beyond monetary measure. Through this group, I began helping others navigate the practical and emotional challenges I had faced. I shared information about senior assistance programs, affordable housing options, and job opportunities for older adults. More importantly, I provided a listening ear and understanding heart to those experiencing the particular pain of being devalued by their own children. Shannon had introduced me to her circle of friends, women in their 30s and 40s who welcomed me without hesitation. I found myself invited to book clubs, community garden projects, and neighborhood potlucks. These women treated me not as someone's mother or someone's burden, but as Elaine, a person with stories to tell, skills to share, and value to bring. One cool autumn evening, Shannon and I sat on her back porch, wrapped in sweaters and sharing a bottle of wine as the sun set. "I've been thinking," she said, swirling the ruby liquid in her glass. "This arrangement we have, it's working really well, isn't it?" "Better than I ever could have imagined," I agreed. "What would you think about making it more permanent? Not just you staying in the guest room until something else comes along, but actually sharing a home long-term." The offer brought tears to my eyes. "Are you sure? You're young, Shannon. You might want to start a family someday, meet someone new." She smiled. "If those things happen, we'll figure it out together. But right now this works. We're good for each other." And we were. Shannon had given me safety when I was at my most vulnerable. I provided companionship and support as she navigated her demanding teaching career. We had created a home together based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation. Last week, Gregory stopped by unannounced again. This time his approach was different. "I've been doing some thinking," he said, standing awkwardly in Shannon's living room. "Maybe I was a bit excessive with the budget stuff." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest he had come. "It wasn't about the money, Gregory," I explained gently. "It was about feeling valued as your mother, not assessed as an expense." He nodded uncomfortably. "Anyway, Vanessa and I broke up. She thought I was being too harsh with you, among other things." The irony wasn't lost on me that the woman who had encouraged him to get rid of me had ultimately found his approach too cold. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. I took no joy in my son's unhappiness despite everything. "So, would you consider moving back?" he asked, revealing the likely motivation for his semi-apology. "No, Gregory," I said firmly. "I'm happy here. This is my home now." His face registered surprise, then disappointment. "But she's my ex-wife," he protested weakly. "And she's my friend," I countered. "My family by choice if not by blood." He left shortly after, still struggling to understand what had happened, how the mother he had tried to control through financial means had found strength in vulnerability and connection in unexpected places. As I approached the one-year anniversary of that terrible morning when Gregory handed me the bill for my existence, I find myself reflecting on the painful but powerful lessons I've learned. I've learned that family isn't always defined by blood, but by who treats you with dignity when you're at your most vulnerable. I've learned that worth cannot be calculated on spreadsheets or reduced to dollar amounts. I've learned that starting over at 58 is terrifying but possible. Most importantly, I've learned that the price of dignity is priceless, and some things should never be for sale. Not for $437. Not for any amount. My journey continues. Some days are still hard. I miss the son I thought I had. I grieve for the relationship we might have had if he valued connection over calculation. But I no longer question my decision to choose self-respect over submission, even when that choice led me down an unexpected path. If you're watching this and facing similar challenges with family who see you as a burden rather than a blessing, know that you are not alone. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you can contribute financially. You deserve dignity, respect, and love that doesn't come with a price tag. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to choose between family ties and self-respect? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and unexpected new beginnings. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from walking away from what hurts us, especially when it's family. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't measured in dollars and cents. It never was and it never will be.